6 p.m. in Douala. Hi there, viewers. Thank you so much for joining us on this other edition of the news on Equinoxe television in the English language. Our major stories right away. Bloody confrontations continue in the southwest and northwest regions of Cameroon few days to Christmas. In the mentioned division of the northwest region, a clash between separatist fighters and the regular army led to several injuries and loss of lives. We'll tell you more in this edition of the news. Plus, NAO complains that the recent power shortage and rationing in most major towns of Cameroon is also to be blamed on financial difficulties. Several public structures owe NAO billions of francs CFA. Now, why do some state institutions find it really hard to pay or settle their debt, and what can be done? We attempt an answer in this edition of the news. Viewers, those were our major stories. Details when we come back. Welcome back, viewers. Thank you so much for the confidence. In this edition of the news, we begin with this tragic element. Here in Douala, precisely at Makepe Misoke, where the corpse of a lady was discovered that was earlier today by the local population at the Makepe Misoke neighborhood. The locals who found her lifeless body lying in the street suspect she must have been dumped there by an individual because there were no traces of violence on her body. We see the family members there who were inconsolable, and that is a picture of the lady whose corpse was discovered at Makepe Misoke, and that was earlier today. Security forces were at the scene. Investigations have been opened, and still in Makepe Misoke today, the corpse of another lady was discovered in the streets. It is alleged she was electrocuted, as signs of electrocution were visible on her body. Investigations also have been opened by security forces. And so we will be coming to that detailing in our subsequent news editions, precisely at its west regions. We told you bloody confrontations continue between separatist fighters and the regular military few days to Christmas. Killings continue in the crisis-hit northwest and southwest regions. In one of the most recent incidents, 5 soldiers were reportedly killed along the Balinda Womb Road. That was yesterday. They were killed by suspected separatist fighters. Babila Jonathan with the details.
Since the Anglophone crisis escalated into an armed conflict more than 6 years ago, both soldiers and armed and unarmed civilians are being brought down by bullets from both sides. As the number of civilians killed increases, the death toll among security and defense forces has also been increasing. In less than a week, 8 security elements have been killed in the northwest region. In the most recent assault on security and defense forces, 5 soldiers were killed in Anabam neighborhood in Obang village, along the road linking the northwest regional capital Bamenda and Wum in the Menchum division. The armed men are said to have ambushed the military convoy before orchestrating an explosion that left 5 of the soldiers dead. The soldiers who survived the explosion were taken away from the scene by a military helicopter that landed in Abang village shortly after the armed men attacked the soldiers. The Cameroon government has not yet commented on this latest incident recorded in the Anglophone crisis.
And Cameroonians continue complaining of frequent blackouts or power shortage across the national territory. NAO on its part blames it on financial difficulties, even with the celebration that followed the announced nationalization of the hydroelectric energy sector in Cameroon. Constant electricity supply remains a dream, far-fetched a reality in Cameroon. The situation has become worse, and British shareholder NAO blames the state of Cameroon for failing to pay its bills. For me, Armstrong Sander tells us why the state finds it difficult to settle its bills with NAO.
The news to nationalize the sector began in November 2022 when a group of investors, led among others by the National Social Insurance, the CNPS, and the National Hydrocarbons Company, the SNH, expressed its interest in acquiring the shares of the British-led Actis Fund in the energy of Cameroon in Nous. The news on the surface sounded like a relief to Cameroonian consumers who were wondering what value added with the privatization of the company Sonel. But ultimately, this raises a lot of questions regarding the political and economic realities of Cameroon, problems which have been resurfacing with what experts qualify as the lack of budgetary discipline on the part of the state of Cameroon. If nationalization Sonel and privatization of electricity distribution to AES Sonel and Nous did not satisfy consumers, it is also above all because the state of Cameroon is not solvent. As long as the state of Cameroon consumes electricity without paying, then all the economic models that we develop will be doomed, according to experts. The thorny question to answer in Cameroon is how to force the state of Cameroon to pay its bills. In 2023, the overall debt owed to Nous by the state of Cameroon amounts to more than 186 billion francs CFA after 163.5 billion francs CFA in May 2021. In December 2021, Nous had to raise some 118 billion francs CFA on the financial market to partially clear its own debt and pay its suppliers. The state of Cameroon is the largest debtor of this company, while it holds 44% of the shares. The takeover of Nous by the state of Cameroon is therefore not good news from an economic point of view. The company is not viable and the government's budgetary indiscipline is not reassuring.
We will be talking on that topic in details. That will be in the second part of the news, viewers. Now let's talk Christmas. Last minute preparations are being made by parents to beautify their houses with decorations ahead of the feast of Nativity or Christmas that would be on the 25th of December. Most of them make use of the Christmas tree. Speaking to our reporter Immaculate Fogwe, priest explains that Christmas trees have very little religious importance while calling on Christians to rather opt for Christmas crepes. Immaculate Fogwe tells us more.
Varieties of decorative items being displayed in different markets across the city of Douala. Christmas trees, decorative ribbons, balls, bells, snowflakes are among the festive items displayed by traders. We sought to know from parents what motivates them to purchase these items. The tree symbolizes resilience of life and internal light. I buy them to make my kids happy. They derive joy when playing with the tree and the decorations on them. It also helps to beautify my house. I equally want to remind my kids that Christ was born on Christmas Day. I buy them to decorate my house. I love the green color. On Christmas Eve, the gifts tied on the tree are shared among family members. Though known to have a religious significance, Reverend Etienne Bakaba refutes the narrative while proposing a better alternative for Christians. Christmas trees have no religious significance. Christians should rather purchase Christmas crepes because it makes them remember about the birth of Christ in a manger in Bethlehem. Before this day was celebrated by pagans, it was later Christianized. Christmas is a very important event in the Christian calendar. It is time for Christians to remember that God allowed His only Son to save humanity from sin.
And now, besides Christmas trees, parents can also be seen in most markets and supermarkets in Douala buying toys for their kids to satisfy them somehow during this festive period. With respect to the choice of toys, our reporter Lucy Liengu Asia spoke with a psychologist who, in a report that comes up next, explains the key role some toys have in the education of a child.
Few days to Christmas, the sale of toys of all sizes, colors is gaining grounds in markets. Though parents complain of an increase in prices, they are obliged to satisfy their kids who adore these toys. What is therefore the importance of instructive toys? A psychologist, Alexandre Mambo, explains. Toys play a vital role in helping children grow. It also helps in the future to determine their field of study and subsequently their profession. The character, talent of a child must be considered before he or she is given a particular toy.
Pour choisir un jouet pour un enfant.
To select a toy for your child, you ought to consider his or her aptitude, natural gift. You should look and consider what your child enjoys doing or his or her interest.
Le plus votre enfant.
The psychologist says toys also help to stimulate a child's talent.
Vous allez remarquer que si votre enfant,
you will realize that if a child wishes to become a doctor, he or she will go for a doctor kit. If he wants to join the army in the future, he will go for guns, war vehicles, police vehicles.
Les voitures de guerre et les voitures de police.
Parents have the obligation to ensure that their kids have suitable toys that will facilitate their growth, but these should be done alongside their children.
Ça ne doit pas être décidé par une seule personne parce que vous pouvez acheter un jouet à votre enfant et l'enfant rejette ce jouet tout simplement.
The psychologists call on parents to be prudent and more vigilant during festive periods.
Parfois, ils vont dissimuler les images homosexuelles, ils vont dissimuler beaucoup de choses qui sont à l'encontre de notre culture.
Not forgetting the role toys play to help kids understand and relate with their environment.
Christmas in advance to all our faithful viewers out there. And now over to these controversial news elements. Pope Francis' recent decision of authorizing Catholic Church officials or priests to bless same-sex couples has spurred a wave of controversy and also backlash by Catholics and non-Catholics alike. And in the upcoming report, the priest further explains what the Pope meant by blessing of same-sex couples.
The approval of the Pope of the Roman Catholic Church allowing Catholic priests to bless same-sex couples has been greatly criticized by some Catholics and non-Catholics around the world. Many regard the Fiducia Supplicans' controversial decision as scandalous, given that it goes against his 2021 declaration where he said he cannot bless sin. Many believe the controversial decision could jeopardize the faith of many Catholics. However, a priest explains that the document reaffirms that marriage is a lifelong sacrament between a man and a woman.
Retenons que ce document réaffirme d'abord la
Fiducia Supplicans, issued by the Dicastery for the Doctrine of the Faith and approved by the Pope, reaffirms that the Church does not have the power to impart a liturgical blessing on irregular or same-sex couples or to bless their union. It can, however, offer a type of blessing that can be conferred on anyone to involve God's help and mercy in their lives if the individuals seek to be guided by greater understanding of God's plan to love and truth.
Des parcours de leur vie se retrouvent dans des couples.
For ages, non-heterosexual unions have been shunned from the Roman Catholic Church, but older ways are slowly changing. Following the outing of the Pope, the Archbishop of the Bamenda Archdiocese, Grace Andrew Nkia, is reported to have described same-sex marriage as witchcraft.
And now we talk sports viewers. The presence of players like Fai Goron Collins, who is now without a club, and Nicholas Nkulu, who is of limited club time, among others, on the provisional list of 49 players sent by coach Rigobert Song Bahanak to CAF, has made many sports fans to question somehow the team the coach will be taking to the AFCON that will be next year. It is from the provisional list that Rigobert Song Bahanak will select the 27 players for the AFCON in Ivory Coast next year. Some of the curiosities in the list of Song Bahanak with Smart Jikan Gabriel.
Even though Rigobert Song Bahanak had the opportunity of presenting 55 names to the Confederation of African Football CAF, the gaffer gave 49 names to CAF, from where he will select the players who will be at the African Nations Cup. The first curiosity in the list of Song is the fact that 7 home-based players were present on his list, amongst them Lionel Ateba of Dinamo, Frank Atsana of Bambutus, Patian Wasu of Cotonsport of Garua, Emmanuel Mahop, Cotonsport of Garua, Jean-Eric Moussou, Cotonsport of Garua, Warren Zidane Fozing, IS Fortuna, and Douala Wilfred Nathan of Victoria United. Surprisingly, the name of the current top scorer of the Elite 1 League, Jules
Jules Amanko with 10 goals and 2 decisive passes, alongside the best goalkeeper of the recent Golden Ball Award, Wendu Lakomelen, were omitted from the list of the pre-selected players. Another curiosity in Song's list is the inclusion of injured Brian Buemo of Brentford FC, the call-up of Ngapandunwet of Olympique of Marseille, who hasn't played any competitive match for his club in the entire season, alongside Davis Epasi, who has just appeared in 1 match for his club side, Alba, are also surprising. Majority of the pre-selected players are those who have been regularly called up by Rigobert Song in the different matches the team has played for the upcoming Nations Cup. Exceptionally, instead of 23 players, CAF has given room for all 24 nations to submit 27 names of players for the competition. Out of the 49 names, Song will thus make a final selection of 27 players that he will hand to CAF on January 3rd, 2024, 10 days before the tournament starts.
However, we begin already by wishing the Lions all the best that will be in Côte d'Ivoire next year. And viewers, that does it for the first part of the news. Don't go away, Talking Point comes up next. Welcome back, viewers. We are talking about power shortage, very frequent now, or power rationing in most major towns and cities in Cameroon by NAO. Cameroonians have been complaining and blaming it all on NAO. NAO on its part says so many state structures are owing them plenty of money. And now we are talking on that with my guest. He is an economist. Son Derek, thank you so much for accepting to be our guest on Talking Point tonight. Now, my first question, why are state institutions finding it so hard to settle their debt with national enterprises?
Thank you very much, Anne, for having me on this program. It's always a pleasure to participate and share to the masses, to the Cameroon government, and to the Cameroon population about what we believe and what we think that can be done in order to move this country forward. The question you were asking about the reasons why the government finds it hard to pay her debt. When things are not moving well in the house, those are the situations we find ourselves. You believe with me that Cameroon is suffering from economic stagnation, where we have of low gross domestic product. We're having a fall in a lot of exportation, and we do not get to raise a lot of money. The system is porous. The tax system is not well coordinated. We have a lot of black marketing. We have a lot of black economy that is going on in Cameroon that is making the country to face stagnation. So places where the government are supposed to raise finances, they end up not having the source or having it completely. Also, we know that we are plagued with a certain political instability, plagued by the Boko Haram insurgency in the northern part of the country, and the infamous war, senseless war in southern Cameroon's today referred northwest and southwest, where the government is pumping in huge sums of money to buy armor cars, to buy guns, to buy bulletproof in order to fight with the non-state armed forces in the name of perhaps restoring peace and stability. And remember, with this instability, it is also blocking investors from coming into the country to invest, which will generate income to the government to pay her taxes. But a very important point we should not forget is the fact that there's a lot of mismanagement in Cameroon, and it is a great problem in Africa in general, where we have mismanagement of state funds, mismanagement in form of corruption, embezzlement, and all the likes. So that mismanagement of funds is so bad. And then we have administrative bottlenecks. The administrative bottlenecks are in a way that there is a possibility in Cameroon for 10,000 francs to be disbursed to do a job. And then because that money has to move from one hand to another. Before it gets to where the job has to be done, that money can become 2,000 francs. It's possible. I think those reasons and many others are contributing for the reason why the state is still having a lot of debt to settle.
And now, Globelec, which works closely with NAO to generate power, says they are going to continue energy production just for the sake of Christmas. They want Cameroonians to feast in peace. Later, they are going to resume the suspension of their activities and back again to rationing. Why does the government seem silent over such gross irregularities, Song Derek?
The question of why is the government silent? It's rhetoric. It's rhetoric because none of us works for the government. I'm not a worker in the government, and that question should have been directed to government officials or to the Ministry of Finance that are in charge of that question. But I'll be attempting my own reason, because I just think that Cameroon, as it stands now, has no policies that is really running it per se. It's being governed by trial and error method. It's being governed by chance. The government is thinking that, well, that is what Globelec has said. Let's see what happens. Let's see how they try to do it. If they try and it works, it's fine. If they try, it doesn't work, and it's still fine for them. And these decisions, you will bear with me that it's not affecting the government bench per se. The weight is on the local citizens who are suffering the damages. You know the cost of the absence of electricity for just one day in an economy. It's very huge. But sad enough, you also believe with me, and that when the landlord becomes the tenant, we have these things to happen. When a father loses the right of controlling a child, the father can no longer question the child on what the child does or what the child does not do. A Nous is supposed to be owned and controlled by Cameroonians and the Cameroon state. But when it was given out, we are supposed to pay the debts of what should have been ours, and we control. It's sad that we are in this situation, but what can we do but just to hope to see how the future gets to change when real leadership take over power, or those in power find a reason to lead by direction and vision.
And now, Mr. Derek, the consequences of power shortage are enormous, really enormous, to the local consumers. Don't you think it's time Cameroonians started asking for an account from those concerned, be it in the EU or the state?
It's a funny question. It's a funny question to talk about suing the company. I'm not a legal practitioner. I'm not one. But I'll be answering from the perspective of the civil society that I belong and represent so well. Every company owes her customer the right to accountability. You need to know what's happening. And at a system where we're even going in for the prepaid resources, remember, if you have to pay for something and you don't consume it, then that company has to account to you. But if the company has justifications to tell you that we do not have light, or we are rationing the light because the government is owing us a chunk of 150 billion, then the government still has as a duty to go back, find measures, find methods, find ways that they will do in order to solve the problem. Because at the end, it is the poor masses that are suffering. It is the local business people that are suffering. Assume that in a very big locality like Bonaberi, there is no light for perhaps 2-3 days. What happened to the business people who have stocked their items in the refrigerator it will get bad. Sad enough, when it gets bad, the government is not going to compensate them, or a new is not going to compensate them. That's where the suing can come in. But in a country like this, where things are not well defined, how do you go about doing that job? What are people going to do? In a country where there are a lot of bottlenecks, will you take your little remaining resources to be running behind a case that might never come to an end? There are a lot of rhetorics that we raise, but the end is a plea that our leadership should understand that the development of every country is for the citizen and is for the future. The leaders have children, and these children have to be in this country, whether they are there or not. So it is important that the leaders just look for a way of solving this problem, of paying off their debts, or perhaps getting into agreement of frequent payment of their debts. Because the reason why these debts are heavy to pay is because they have been accumulated. Let them pay the debts pro rata on timely basis. As time goes on, every month their debts should be paid. We will not have this accumulation of debts as it is the case.
Thank you so much, Sound Derek. And viewers, thank you so much for being with us. Don't go away, our programs continue. Equinoxe Soir at 7 p.m. and the news in the French language at 8 p.m. Stay with us on Equinoxe Television. Bye-bye for now.